Welcome back to coverage of the Neon Dynasty Championship. We are in lower round 2. I'm Ailey Loney alongside Mani Davuti, and we have our World Championship slots all wrapped up. Mani, all we need to do now is find a champion.
Yeah, and we're halfway there. We've got Zach done waiting in that championship match. So the question is, who is going to get there from the lower bracket to face it?
It could well be one of our next players, Jonny Guttman versus Zhi Yimin. It is going to be mono-white aggro, the last remaining mono-white deck in this tournament, versus Mardu Midrange. So let's jump into the action here, take a look at these opening hands, and see who is progressing along in this lower bracket.
Good thing for Jonny, he is the upper seed. We see him, he was 4th after the Swiss compared to Yimin's 7th. So he'll be on the play, which is already a great place to be as the mono-white deck, but definitely preferable when you're up against a bit of a rough matchup. And for Yimin, he's played against mono-white 3 times in this tournament, and he's won 3 times. So pretty happy to get this matchup here when playing for his tournament life.
That's not something Jonny Guttman wants to hear, although I'm guessing he may know that already. A mulligan here for Zhi Yimin, who's not too happy with this either, it seems. He does have stuff to do. It might just be a little too slow for his liking. He will keep it, however, send that sundown pass to the bottom of the library. So let's get the show on the road. Snow-covered plains. Go.
Good thing about this hand, you don't have any targets for Portable Hole. Bad thing about this hand, Thalia is going to slow down those 2 Planeswalkers. Does still have a 3-mana Archon of Emeria that he can play on curve, so certainly not without plays, but Jonny Guttman is going to be the aggressor for sure in this matchup, and Yimin does not really want to field that Thalia attacks this early in the game.
Certainly not. I wonder if this Fleeting Spirit is a cause for pause, though, here for Gutman, as I like being the aggro deck, and I'm pretty sure he wants to get smack in there for 3. Knowing that the Planeswalkers only come down on turn 4, Thalia can take a turn off.
Absolutely. Not only the Planeswalkers, this deck also features Fable of the Mirror Breaker, but that comes down on turn 3. The number of spells that you really care about on turn 2 are very few, so I think Jonny feels safe there deploying the Spirit, which has more power, on turn 2, and now I would like to see him develop that Thalia, because you want to make sure that if Yimin has kept a hand that is full of 3-drops that are non-creatures, those get stalled for a bit.
Tainted Adversary is the draw here. Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, down on the battlefield alongside that Fleeting Spirit. So 5 power developed here already for Jonny Guttman. And the key to winning this match, don't deal with those Planeswalkers, because they are a pain in the backside. So as long as he can prevent those hitting the battlefield, he should be in a pretty good spot here. Here's Archon of Emeria for the turn from Zhi. And unfortunately, it doesn't fit in a portable hole, really. So might see the Fleeting Spirit just go ham here, unless Inquisitor Captain can find something spicy.
Sigurd of Evangel is something spicy that he could take here. Doesn't really need an Archon of his own, since it would just bounce off, but taking the Evangel lets you tap the Archon of Emeria from Yimin, and that would let you get in an attack for 5 here, putting Yimin down to 12, which is pretty powerful in this position.
Yeah, and with the follow-ups to Guardian Evangel the next turn, that's even more damage coming through. 11 if my math is right. Math is for blockers anyway.
Yeah, the Evangel in hand being able to play twice means that even if Yimin is able to develop the City Soccer Connoisseur here, it would, I guess, take the Guardian Evangel out of Gutman's hand. Deceptively, this Portable Hole's cost is increased to 2 here from the Thalia, but that is not the mana value of it. So the Evangel is still susceptible to the City Stalker Connoisseur. That will go down at least, and that would be nice to see for Yimin, as that Evangel would have provided a lot of pain on this upcoming turn.
That would have been big ouchies for sure. So now where does Jonny Guttman go? Is he just full on into this? I'm just going to keep slamming stage, and I'm 100% with you there, friend. Faceless Haven jumps up and is going to get swinging here with the team. Thalia will hang back, as she won't get through either of these creatures.
Yeah, you have to hold the Thalia back here. You can't just run it into an Archon of Emeria when Yimin is already forced to block as many creatures as possible. And by throwing this Thalia away, you would enable Yimin to potentially play one of those powerful walkers in his hand even if he doesn't have a fifth land available. So I like this play to hold the Thalia back. Yimin will still try to trade 2 creatures, but taking 6 damage down to 6 is a pretty precarious position and really needs a land drop off the top.
So it looks like we're going to see trades here. There is the option to get Fleeting Spirit exiled, but Jonny's quite happy to send that away. And another Faceless Haven to join the fray. Not needed at this point because the Faceless Haven did survive. There's a Duress. It's not really going to find all that much and not really time to cast it at this point. Didn't find his land either.
There is a Tainted Adversary, so you're not dead here, but with that portable hole, which Gutman does not know about, which Yimin does not know about, excuse me, he is dead. So we may see something like Yimin feeling forced to go for a Blood Vial sacrifice, try to find a land, play the Tainted Adversary, and hope they can survive to play the Sorin next turn. But we know that Gutman has that portable hole to deal with the adversary, and I believe this is going to be a game 1 victory for the mono white aggro deck.
It is certainly looking like that, and as you and Cedric and plenty of co-commentators say, you got to win the games you're meant to win, and this was a must-win game for Jonny being on the play. Game 1, there's the blood token sacrifice, didn't find a land, just has the Tainted Adversary. Is there any consideration for the Vanishing Verse?
Vanishing Verse does play around the portable hole. It does put you down to 1 life still, which isn't a favorable position, but at least you're alive for a turn. The bigger problem is that your hand still isn't great. So yes, this turn Gutman can try to survive with that Vanishing Verse, go down to 1 life. However, next turn developing double Tainted Adversary will still not be good enough against this portable hole.
So down to 1 goes Zhi Yimin. There is another land, plus an Archon on the battlefield now too. So 4 creatures,
Can't even
3
play
creatures
double
available.
adversary anymore.
Yeah. Just not going Zhi Yimin's way, and Jonny Guttman is 1 step closer towards progressing along this lower bracket here. So let's take a look at the sideboard. If you're in Zhi Yimin's spot, what are you looking to bring in and take out?
I would love to slam that Meat Hook Massacre in my deck and then somehow conjure 3 more copies to put them there as well. Unfortunately, doesn't have that luxury, but we do see some cheaper removal, Bloodchief's Thirst, Portable Hole, as well as some mid-range threats that line up pretty well against the mono-white aggro deck. Lisa being a 5-mana creature means that a card like Skyclave Apparition can't deal with it. Lifelink, huge in the matchup. Flying, great in the matchup, as well as just being able to start throwing your other creatures under the bus, knowing you can get them back. So Lisa is a huge card in this matchup, as it is pretty difficult for the mono white deck to answer it if you never attack with it. Wandering Emperor is one of the only ways, in addition to Brutal Cathar, which there aren't that many copies of, only 2, that once Lisa's on the battlefield, the mono white deck can deal with. So that's going to be one of the most important cards in this post-board game, in addition to that 1 copy of Meat Hook Massacre.
Zhi Yimin will certainly hope to find that and hope to survive to 5 lands, because, yeah, that didn't work out too well for him in game number 1, unfortunately.
Being on the play this game will certainly help. Won't be as on the back foot, able to hopefully develop out a creature like that Triumphant Adversary, Adventurer, excuse me, on turn 2 and start venturing into the dungeon before Jonny gets too much pressure on the board. This mono white deck, as we've mentioned before, isn't as aggressive as mono white decks that we've seen in the past. It's closer to a mid-range deck, packing not too many 1-drops, because you're trying to have these utility 3-mana creatures like Apparition, Spellbinder, Brutal Cathar, Archon of Emeria. So definitely a bit more beneficial for these mid-range decks to see these decks be a bit slower. But ultimately, as you said, Gutman won the game that he needed to win. He was on the play in the first game and took it down, because otherwise it was going to be pretty hard for him. Now, at least, even if he loses this game, where Yimin has a pretty good hand, he'll still get to be on the play again for the 3rd game.
So the opening hands, Yimin pretty happy with his 7. On the other side of things, Jonny Guttman hoping that the top of the deck plays nice, and he finds a land 3. Does so with Faceless Haven, so these 3 drops will be ready to rock and roll. Did also find 2 drops, so his curve is looking pretty decent right now.
Yeah, the two draws for Jonny were just fantastic so far this game. Yes, there's a wedding announcement on the other side. Yes, there's a Skyclave apparition, though I doubt Yimin will want to use that on the Evangel. But what Jonny has is a ton of powerful utility 3 drops coming. And starting with the Skyclave apparition this turn, if he wants, just get that wedding announcement off the board, as getting a ton of blockers is how Yimin can try to survive into that powerful mid and late game that the mid-range deck has available. So I think Jonny will want to get rid of that wedding announcement as soon as possible.
Yeah. It's a bit of a tricky decision to make there, because it's like, okay, I'm gonna get rid of that, but I don't know what's coming down next. And turn 4 is generally the retro turn in terms of the planeswalkers, so wedding announcements dealt with, but no idea what's coming down next.
Turn 4 is scary. Turn 5 is disaster, because that's where we're getting to Lulth, we're getting to Lisa. So I understand Jonny's realization there that if I don't answer this wedding announcement, it's already going to give my opponent more value than I can afford to give them. So
Yeah.
they can have a City Stalker Connoisseur or a Wandering Emperor if that's what their hand holds for them. I have another Skyclave Apparition to deal with that first 4-drop that's dealt. What I can't really deal with are these 5-drops. So I think we'll see Jonny prioritize casting the Spellbinder this upcoming turn just to get that Lulth out of the hand that he doesn't know about, but it's one of the cards on the short list that he's worrying about.
Yeah, the 5-drops are definitely worthy of concern, as they can run away with the game. I mean, the last time we saw Lisa hit the battlefield, it's like, well, there goes the advantage bar straight towards the other player. So there's line number 4. Nice pickup there for Jonny. Now, does this change his decision do you think?
It's nice. The temptation of Inquisitor Captain on curve is extremely high. Not hitting a Spellbinder would be pretty annoying, as you would love to get that Lulth or whatever card may be hiding in the unknown there from Yimin's hand out of there. But it's so tempting to just get this captain and try to get on the board. The question for Jonny is, what's the worst that can happen? The answer is Lisa, and while there's a brutal Cathar there, you can't reasonably expect the Cathar to survive in this matchup. So I understand the temptation for Gutman to just play this captain, and hopefully there's a Spellbinder. You saw him thinking about it, so he maybe is thinking the same thing.
Doesn't find a Spellbinder, but to his relief, I would say, there needs to be a 5th land in order for Lulth to come down this turn. So let's see if Zhi Yimin can find that 5th land.
The 1-2 punch of Wandering Emperor into Lulth here is going to be devastating if Yimin finds that 5th land. So this is going to be a big draw step coming up here, as Emperor is down. Not quite. Okay, right. So Jonny has time. We may see him develop another Inquisitor Captain now that he knows that there's nothing disastrous coming from Yimin on this 5th turn. Maybe he'll recognize that there is a powerful 5-drop and there isn't a 5th land and want to go for the Spellbinder. But I think if he made this play last turn, there's a decent chance he's going to double down on it again this upcoming turn.
Portable Hull, an answer here for the Luminarch Aspirants, so no more counters for you. At least for the time being, Skyclave Apparition can take care of that, but I'm guessing that there's a Wandering Emperor with its name on that. So Skyclave Apparition from Zhi Yimin is going to take care of one of the pesky creatures. So Inquisitor Captain into exile if that does die. However, a 4/4, which is very, very nice. We'll be back on Jonny's board.
Yeah, you could just make your Samurai 3/3 if you want, get an attack in with that. The other option is put the counter on your 1/1 token to be able to attack with both creatures and diversify your threats, as these are tokens is very free for Jonny to answer them using Brutal Cathar. So what Zhi Yimin doesn't want to do is put all his stats on one token and then suddenly have it get Brutal Cathar for just 0 value.
Land number 5 drawn here for Jonny. No 2-drop though, unfortunately, to get out a 3 and a 2-drop. So let's see how he navigates this turn. Is it worth a peek in the hand now? Gotta be tempting.
It's got to be tempting, but I think with that fifth land, he actually becomes even more incentivized to play captain here, just to put himself in a position where if he draws another land, he can go double three
Mm.
drop and have more options the next turn. Still, obviously, thinking that there is a chance that by playing captain, he hits a spellbinder anyways. And of course, this turn, the new factor is the Wandering Emperor. So Gutman may just feel forced to exile the Emperor with the apparition rather than take either of the previous options.
Yeah, that's what he's going to do. Happy to get
Oof.
that pesky planeswalker off the battlefield, and luckily, and unfortunately for Zhi, Forsaken Crossroads will not untap, so Lolth is going to have to hang out in hand one more turn.
One more turn, one more opportunity for Gutman to potentially draw a land and go double three drop, or just play the Spellbinder regardless. And this Lolth is still hanging out in the hand, unfortunately. Yimin would have loved to develop this earlier, as I know that look. I'm in the middle of a match. Don't I'm busy right now, as Gutman turns around and uh, just says some words. But yeah, this is a tough position still here for Gutman, as Lolth is not the only important thing on the board right now.
Oh
There's a lot
no.
happening here in terms of creatures as well.
Oh, do you see what's on top of the library
Oh,
there,
I
friend?
do. Oh, I do.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I don't think we could have seen Yimin snap that card to the top of the deck fast enough, and
Oh
that
no.
is not an elite spellbinder. So it is Spider Queen time, and
Oh.
5 cost spells are really good against this mono white deck. 5 cost permanents, I should say. Skyclave Apparition does not get rid of those, so Lulth coming down means that we're gonna make some spiders. When we Meat Hook Massacre, Lulth is gonna get a lot of counters, which means more
Oof.
spiders and more spiders. So this is starting to get into dangerous territory for Jonny. And Ailey, one of the most important keywords on those spiders, of course, as most spiders in Magic do tend to do, is reach. So the option of just flying over, not there for Gutman.
Mm-mm. Here's a big think for Zhi Yimin. Lolth, Spider Queen, eventually comes down, just deciding, is it worth Meat Hook massacring now? Decides, nope, I'm just gonna get some good old spooters down, gum up this battlefield. There's no answer for a wide board for Jonny. He needs his creatures to do the work for him, so... Ooh, this is gonna be an interesting few turns, especially with that Meat Hook massacre looming in hand for Zhi.
Yeah, I think no matter what, Jonny will want to start this turn with Spellbinder just to get a peek at what's going on. I don't think he feels the need to get both Skyclave Apparition and Brutal Cathar get cast this turn. This board is a little scary from Yimin, but by playing Brutal Cathar and just getting rid of the 4/4 token, a lot of the potential aggression is shut down. So start with Spellbinder, make sure there isn't Lisa or Meat Hook hiding in that hand. So this pays off big time. And now you can just Brutal Cathar away this 4/4 token, get the Cathar on the board. And yeah, I love this decision making from Jonny. This is great sequencing.
Alright, one big problem dealt with. Skyclave Apparition and the Brutal Cathar work really nicely in that regard. It's like, okay, well, you made a problem on the other side of the battlefield when you died. Thanks for that, Skyclave. Brutal Cathar comes in, cleans up the mess. It's all Gucci.
But now we are going to enter the age of Lulth. Lulth is one of the
Scary.
most annoying planeswalkers I've ever had on my side of the board or on the other side of the board. Just the fact that when creatures die, you're regaining your loyalty counters and just regrowing these spiders as you see fit means that Jonny at first is like, okay, well, I need to answer this Lulth, but you don't actually have very many good attacks, Jonny. And I think that's the realization that he's coming to is that Spider Queen is going to live for a while, and that means Yimin is going to start drawing cards.
Ooh. This makes me nervous.
I don't blame him. There aren't really good options available here, but I think what he's going to see fairly shortly is there are more than adequate blocks available for Yimin, and that means this board is not getting any better anytime soon.
I guess the other thought process is as well, the longer I wait to do something about her, the longer Meathook Massacre has to build its capabilities. And then Loth just gets huge anyway.
Yeah, and I love this change of blocks here from Yimin. Was originally double blocking the captain with the samurai while throwing a 1-1 under the Skyclave apparition. However, decides I don't need to keep my 2-2 in exchange for your Skyclave apparition. Let's just trade across the board. I get to keep an apparition that's in front of this 1-1. My Lulth is going to get quick maths 9 counters, I believe. So yeah, let's get large.
Let's get large. Wait, no, that's not the right song.
It's close enough.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Loth is only your creature,
Yeah.
so only 5 counters, much more reasonable. I apologize, and I think it's time for the spiders to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see Johnny shaking the head like, what am I doing? I maybe he didn't realize the Loth was gaining the counters. I find that really unlikely to happen, but there's definitely some agony going on over there as yeah, I think Yimin is just going to make more spiders and maybe even start attacking with something like this 3/3 token because he's firmly in control of this game right now.
Yeah, and this is the power of Loth. It's, she's so good at protecting herself. Like, the best planeswalkers and the most difficult to deal with are the ones that can protect themselves, and she does an excellent job of that. Planeswalker, sweet. 2 creatures, awesome. Come at me, bro. I will just throw them under the bus and make some more the next turn. And here comes Meathook Massacre.
It is really weird to say that the best cards against a mono-white aggro deck are 5 mana cards. But Skyclave Apparition is just that powerful that it warps the format around itself, and suddenly that's just a factual statement. In fact, the best cards against this mono-white aggro deck are 5 mana cards.
Yeah, because by the time that your opponent's rocking 5-drops, you should have won the game by then, right? At least from a mono-white aggro perspective. Yes, this is slightly more skewed to being a mid-range deck, and Gutman's not out of it yet. We have a Skyclave Apparition here. He can get rid of that portable hull and get the Luminarch Aspirant back. Start putting some counters on stuff. Let's see what happens.
I would guess you're going at the opposing apparition. Get yourself a 4/4 illusion and try to make a wider board rather than a taller board. As well, 4/4 lining up pretty well on this board. But the big problem is you are not doing anything to Loth, which can still draw cards. Currently, you don't want any creatures to die from Yimin, as that would allow Loth to make another set of spiders. So I like this decision to pass it back and maybe try to kill the Spider Queen next turn if Yimin just bricks on these 2 draws, but that is not a brick.
Ui, whisky, whisky, ay caramba, and all those other exclamations. Here comes Fable of the Mirror Breaker. There's another creature on the battlefield who's quite happy to just yeet himself towards Jonny Guttman's face.
Yeah, and extra lands are not an issue, as the window for Johnny to get back into this game is very quickly shrinking, and Yimin is not showing any signs of slowing down. It looks like Johnny learned his lesson last time. There is not going to be another attack into a board full of tokens with Loth waiting.
Okay. 2 City Stalker Connoisseurs. Seems good. Let's see what else Loth has for a Skyclave Apparition.
Yeah, okay. I think one thing that Yimin is definitely going to be careful of is not playing 2 spells, just to make sure.
Yeah.
Which he can't right now, but just to make sure that he's not flipping back to day and allowing this Brutal Cathar to get some free value on a token. But I don't really think he has to. He's got that reflection of Kiki Jiki flipping. He can just play a City Stalker Connoisseur here, get the last card out of Johnny's hand, and be operating with full information. And we are a turn-ish away from Yimin just being able to develop this Fable or Reflection of Kiki Jiki plus City Stalker Connoisseur lock that we've talked about a lot, but haven't seen just yet in this tournament. And Haley, in these mid-range matchups, this lock is decent, but there's some instant speed removal floating around. In this matchup, I don't know if Jonny has that much instant speed removal to work with.
Um, Looking
Try
at the
again.
list, I don't think so. But he's gonna go for it. What else can he do at this point? He's fighting a losing battle right now. So let's just throw some stuff towards Lolth. She's gonna get ginormous.
You're right.
Stuff's gonna die.
It's do or die. And, I think Jonny is trying his best to stay in this game, but I'm sure that he understands that Cave of the Frost Dragon is not going to do it. He doesn't have the tools to win with here. And I think we're maybe a turn or so away from a concession from Jonny Guttman in this game.
Yeah, and no shame in that. At some point in the game, this mid-range deck is just gonna lock him out, and we could see the City Stalker Connoisseur Kiki-Jiki shenanigans, but I don't think Jonny wants to see that, honestly.
Yeah, look, at some point, you have to cut your losses. You have to say, I'm up a game. I get a third game on the play. I'm not going to agonize myself wasting more time in this game, which feels, frankly, impossible. I'm going to move on. I'm going to regroup myself during sideboarding, and I'm going to go into the third game on the play and do my best to take
Yeah.
it down and go into the next round.
Yeah, just go ham, go wide, go fast, go face. Vanishing Verse here now, an answer to either the Brute or the Skyclave Apparition. There's the reflection of Kiki-Jiki.
Yeah, honestly,
Game is pretty much over at this point.
more spiders, play an apparition, get rid of this brute, just get it off the board, or the apparition. It really doesn't matter. I don't think there's any losing here for Yimin from this position.
And getting feisty now. 4 points of damage, down to 7 goes Jonny. More spiders on the battlefield, things dying. We're going to have more triggers from the Meat Hook Massacre. There's a Skyclave Apparition to clear out the opposing. This board is just nothing he can do about it right now. Sure, Brutal Cathar is a great draw, but it doesn't do anything right now because it's nighttime, so it's just an angry dog.
Yeah, Brutal Cathar will come into play as the Moonrage Brute, and, this type of board isn't going to be solved by brute force.
Maybe flipping the table would do it, but yeah, unfortunately that's not a feature in Arena.
Or fortunately, really. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I would not want my opponents flipping tables on me, Ailey. I'm just going to say.
Table flip! It just costs you all your gems for the day. Yeah.
Look, I'm a Nexus of Fate player, okay? A lot of people would flip tables against
I
me.
would flip so hard on you.
I'm just saying that I am the target of the table flip, and I don't like it.
That's fine and acceptable. City Stalker Connoisseur is going to rip apart the hand here of Jonny, and you can see the expression on his face pretty much tells the story of how this game 2 has gone. But like you said, there is still one more game to go. It is not over until it's over.
Look, Yimin has timed out once already in this top 8. Jonny's going to make him go through the actions. I respect that. The game's not over until my life total is 0, so take me to 0, and that's exactly what Zhi Yimin does as we're going into this third game.
All right, so back on the play goes Jonny. Does he basically transform back to his starting configuration, or what's the general plan here for him?
Not entirely. You still don't want the Archons of Emeria. Yep. They're not going to do anything, but you do see that Jonny's deck is definitely still going a bit bigger. We see more Spellbinders coming in, obviously. They're great in the matchup. We see the Brutal Cathar. We see the one copy of Ao coming in, and it's sort of the same logic. Obviously, a little different between the two decks, but 5 mana equals good when you're playing against the World of Skyclave Apparitions, and I completely understand why. So I like that. One of the interesting things here for Yimin is 3 Fables coming out here. So definitely opting, this is not the matchup in which I'm looking to get the Reflection lock going, even though that last game, it really didn't come down to the Fable, but it was a contributing factor at the very end.
Yeah. All the connoisseurs just showing up on time, able to rip apart Jonny's hand. And the players are ready to rock and roll, so let's go! Just a reminder, friends, if you are just joining us, this is do or die. This is lower round number 2, so whoever loses here, their tournament is done. Whoever remains will progress in the lower bracket, and their hopes to be the champion this weekend are still alive.
Yeah, get rid of the extra Ganjo. Definitely a much better 6. On the other side,
Ooh.
this hand looks pretty decent here after already a mulligan as well from Yimin. So I think you have to keep and get rid of the 5 mana card since it's currently a decent ways away. Hey, yes, Lolth was
But
insane
five
that
mana
game.
good.
5 mana is
Five
good.
5 mana good, Monty. You
But
are
Ailey,
doing
we're on
9
the
to
draw.
us?
We're on the draw this time.
Okay,
The
fine.
draw is tough, and luckily for Jonny, has one of the 1-drops in his deck.
Yeah.
There aren't many of those, so starting off with a 1-drop feels pretty great, especially when your opponent has that wedding announcement that you
Yeah.
could hopefully try to blank in a few turns if you're able to get some training done with this
Yeah.
initiate.
2-drop. Nope. Darn it. No 2-drop there for Jonny, so just has to be satisfied with a 1 damage coming in through here.
Yeah, got to be a huge sigh of relief here for Yimin, understanding that there isn't a 2-drop coming out from Jonny. And if Jonny doesn't have a 3-drop either here, if he draws another land and this Brutal Cathar doesn't get played because there's no target, Yimin is going to feel fantastic about how this game is going.
Yeah. I mean, is there any consideration just to develop a board? Use your mana?
It might feel like you have to, but I don't think you can afford to here. Throwing away resources when a 2/2 isn't even that great of an attacker in the matchup is just such an easy way to lose if your opponent just plays a Skyclave Apparition to remove your Inquisitor Captain 1 turn later.
Good point. Vanishing Verse, a consideration here for Zhi Yimin on the end step. Is Hopeful Initiate that much of a potential threat to this wedding announcement for him to fire this off here?
Realistically, no. The bigger threat is just tempo. Right now, Yimin is thinking through the potential iterations of the next 2 to 3 turns and thinking, I've got 2 3-mana cards and a 4-mana card. How long am I going to have to wait to cast this Vanishing Verse if I don't play it now? That is the big question. And if the answer is I'm not casting this verse for 4 turns, and by that time he's drawn a bunch more cards and will have more plays, then maybe it's time to just fire off this Vanishing Verse now just to make sure that Gutman isn't having any board presence. But I like this recognition to say this thing isn't doing much. Your hand is clearly awkward and or reactive, so I'm just gonna let this live and keep my Vanishing Verse for the things you play that matter, like Brutal Cathar and Skyclave Apparition, that sort of thing.
For sure. Speaking of Skyclave Apparition, there's a second in hand now for Zhi Yimin. Alongside the wedding announcement and the Vanishing Verse, it's wedding announcement time. Who's getting married today? Sure, someone is.
Someone is, and they look pretty happy about it. Who doesn't look happy is Jonny, but Skyclave Apparition off the top. Not a bad answer, though. 4 mana, you're behind. It's Inquisitor Captain time.
Hey, look at that. Skyclave Apparition and Spellbinder. Will we get an earlier Spellbinder this time, or is it Skyclave?
I think you take the Spellbinder. You want to look at your opponent's hand. You want to make sure that if they're holding some sort of powerful 4-drop, you can take it from them. Like that Wandering Emperor, no point in taking any of the other cards in this hand, considering they're not interested in casting Apparition immediately anyways and have a backup copy. And yeah, because you have that captain already developed, the wedding announcement isn't as devastating in the spot, considering your board is already going wider and you can wait a turn to apparition it.
And what's also nice is there's 2 creatures on the battlefield here for Hopeful Initiate to get some training done. Potentially get that wedding announcement off the battlefield, so let's see where Zhi Yimin goes this turn. Does he want to disrupt this hand with the City Stalker Connoisseur? Is it time to get some Skyclaves rock in, or will we see this Vanishing Verse?
Well, the first question right now for Yimin, in my opinion, is this pathway going on white or red? Now, not many red cards left in the deck post-board. There's only one Fable of the Mirror Breaker. And you are very incentivized to have 3 white sources because if you draw any untapped land, you can go Apparition plus Vanishing Verse next turn, which is really nice. So I like this decision to play it on white. Really heads up play from him, not trying to have access to all mana, because realistically, he doesn't need all mana right now. He needs specifically more white mana.
Yeah. Oof. Now the temptation must be there to get rid of that City Stalker Connoisseur so that the hopeful initiate survives. But then, gotta wait a turn to get rid of that wedding announcement, so strike while the iron is hot.
Well, the thing is, you have Iganjo here, so you can actually attack with
Yeah.
everything. And when the opponent, if the opponent goes for a block with Connoisseur on Initiate, and you see Yimin shaking his head because he also knows that this attack very, very heavily suggests a certain card. And
Suspicious.
if this happens and they have the Iganjo, it's really bad for you as you take a boatload of damage and you don't have a good block and you lose your Connoisseur. So love this attack from Jonny, and we'll most likely see the Connoisseur get Iganjoed if it blocks basically anything at this spot, and Jonny still have that Skyclave Apparition as backup.
Yeah. So plenty of things for Jonny to do at this juncture. Spellbinder, free and clear for the time being, unless a certain Spider Queen shows up, but no double black right now.
No block from Yimin.
Ooh-hoo-hoo.
Wow. The read of this Iganjo from Yimin is excellent, and I really like what he's done here, even though the bad news is that Skyclave Apparition is still in hand, so
Yeah.
Jonny is going to be able to follow this up with another 1-2 punch.
Yep. Here comes the Skyclave, and that's going to get rid of the Wedding Invitation instead. Hopeful Initiate, number 2 down on the battlefield, and Iganjo still in hand. There's a Tainted Adversary as the draw for Yimin. No 5th land for him, unfortunately.
I think right now Yimin is in a position where very tempted to sacrifice this blood token just to draw lands, because that Wandering Emperor would be pretty nice. You'd like to find double black just to put yourself in a position to find Meathook Massacre off the top. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Skyclave Apparition, most likely on the opposing Skyclave Apparition here from Yimin, as well as using that blood token to discard something, perhaps the Tainted Adversary, and try to find a 5th land, because there are a decent number of lands in this deck that do come into play tapped, and you want to put yourself in a position where you can play it this turn in case you draw land number 6 next turn for the Wandering Emperor.
Jonny Guttman getting a little frustrated with himself for some reason. Wonder what he did that he wasn't too happy about.
I think the frustration is more with the situation than anything specific. This is a stressful match, and certainly there are ways still for the Mardu midrange deck to get back into this game. So I think Jonny should realize that he's in a decently favored position here, considering he has a decent amount of information on the opponent's hand. And the big question is, how can he push this advantage, as if he sits on it, he's giving room for the midrange deck to come back into the game. And that Ailey, as I push the advantage bar to full, is how you push some advantage here.
Guardian Evangel, one of the best cards from Alchemy for this deck. You could see Jonny thinking about it. He's like, well, I could tap 2 things. Can train 2 initiates.
Yeah, I see 2 3/3s. I want to tap 2 3/3s. I want to slam that attack all button, and I want to just make sure that, hey, you don't have double black, and I know 2 of the 3 cards in your hand. I'm going to guess that if that was a black source, you would have played it. So maybe that's the Meathook Massacre, that one unknown card. Maybe you're going to draw into a black source. I'm going to force you to have it if it's exactly those 2 things. But if not, you are getting very close to death, Yimin. You know what? I agree with Jonny. Send him.
Yeah. Put dudes down, turn them sideways. Well, except for the Inquisitor Captain, who has vigilance. Make these little idiots even larger, and force a block here. Otherwise, Yimin is super dead.
Yeah, I don't know. That initiate's been training. I don't know if I can call it a little idiot anymore.
Yeah. Got some gains going there. Pretty sure he would answer yes if you asked him if he
I saw the Meathook.
Nope.
And I, I gotta say, I think the only out for Yimin there was exactly untapped Black Source Meathook Massacre. So drawing Sora the Mirthless, I'm gonna say this game is pretty close to unwinnable now for the Mardu midrange deck, and I think Yimin knows it as well. You see a little shake of the head as that Soren gets drawn, and he knows what the outs in this situation were, and that is not on the list.
Unfortunately, not for Zhi Yimin, as Jonny Guttman inches ever so close to victory here. 4 attackers swinging on in. A bunch of damage flying towards Zhi Yimin's face. How's he going to block here? He's going to try and kill the bigger Hopeful Initiate and take 5. Ooh, down to 4.
Technically, that's the one creature that would survive a Meathook Massacre for 3.
Oh, that's
Problem is that's not a consideration because you're not able to cast a Meathook Massacre for 3. And I think Yimin realizes that as well. And this block is actually taking 9 damage, so it's just over. Jonny Guttman says, "Let's go," and let's go for Jonny, as that was
let's
a
go.
clean victory from Jonny Guttman there.